You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as today your Indiana Hoosiers defeat Chattanooga 74-65 to move their record to 9-3 on the season. Not a Big Ten game, so they stay 1-1 in the Big Ten. I'm your host, Coach Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with Bob Mocs. We're going to break it all down for you here on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. But what happened was Indiana and Chattanooga were in a dogfight for most of the first half. Chattanooga led for 12 minutes and 51 seconds of that first half and really was able to move the ball. Their Princeton point offense was really humming. They got a lot of back cuts as Indiana was trying to overplay, the handoffs and some of the screens that were happening on the wing. And then all of a sudden the center for Chattanooga was really doing a good job of hitting the back cuts and then kicking out and sharing the basketball. There was an absolutely beautiful possession by Chattanooga where they just moved the ball, drove down, and that kept Chattanooga in the game. And Indiana was struggling to find its defensive presence throughout the half, down 41-38. And it seems like they got a pretty serious talking to at halftime, because I thought they came out and played a lot better defense to start the half and were able to extend the lead to 61-51 with 11:23 to go. But the Hoosiers show up again. They do not score a point again until 4:23 was on the clock. So that's 7 minutes without scoring, which allowed Chattanooga to stay in. And in that point, at one point, it was 64-59. Chattanooga misses 5 straight possessions to really put some more pressure on Indiana. The game does get down to a 4-point lead at 65-61. Indiana was able to put it away with a couple key baskets after a really good timeout by Coach Woodson after some questionable plays and turnovers late in the game with the lead. Renew taking a 3 late, and then all of a sudden 3 baskets at the rim, 8-point lead, game over for your Indiana Hoosiers. Not necessarily what we wanted to see after the loss to Nebraska as far as a fluid response, but a win is a win nonetheless. So let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And I'm going to be brutally honest, there wasn't a whole lot of moments out there to be banner moment, but I'm going to pick one. I thought the transition game, again, continues to be one of Indiana's strengths and is an improvement from years past, that they're getting out and scoring off misses, and they're getting out and trying to push the ball off makes too. The banner moment came with a nice fast break layup to Anthony Leal, where the ball, I think it was after a make, got inbounded and kicked up to Anthony Leal to beat Chattanooga down the floor. That just shows, again, we've talked a lot about how you can get offense, and early offense is just really, really good to see. They've done it with the post-up. They've done it with the kick-out threes. They had a few of those today. And that Anthony Leal fast break layup early in or midway through the first half is our banner moment. Our banner moment today, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 8th season sponsoring the Assembly Call and their 4th as presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you'll find everywhere. It was all over the place yesterday up in South Bend. IU is their flagship school, got their start with IU football, had a great year. If you want IU gear, go to Home Field Apparel. And it's not just IU stuff. They have over 180 schools on their site now, which makes Home Field the perfect one-stop shop for all your Christmas shopping needs. So homefieldapparel.com. They have a number of deals still going on. We have a promo code HOME23 that gets 15% off your first order. I'm wearing a Home Field shirt today. I'm sure a lot of you are wearing Home Field as well. That is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. Okay, now it's time to move the ball. and I just got off the script there. It's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And the rest of our team is none other than the great Coach Bob Mocs. As I'm struggling here, recovering from a late night and fumbling my words, Coach, your thoughts on today's Hoosier victory over Chattanooga?
Is there a more helpless feeling than when your team can't score for 7 minutes?
Oh, it's horrible.
I mean, if you can just do the sports equivalent of being on the deck of the Titanic as the bow as the ship is breaking, I think that's the feeling, is the best I can describe it. And I throw that out there just because how your team responds to that is oftentimes incredibly important. And we always talk basketball is a game of runs, and throughout really the first 30-ish minutes of the game, IU was running about 1.3 points per possession. So they were converting a lot of good looks. They were getting the ball basically where, they had a lot of opportunities to score, and they were taking advantage of them. And then they just ran into that horrid drought. And because of, you referenced it, coming out the way they did in the second half, building a bit of a cushion, allowed them to weather the storm on that 7 minutes where it wasn't like it was all bad. There were good looks there. It's just sometimes the ball just pops out. Sometimes the play just isn't there. And they just couldn't find. I mean, how many they must have missed 4 or 5 free throws down that stretch too, if I recall correctly. I mean, there were several misses. And they did well enough on defense to keep Chattanooga at bay, where they prevented Chattanooga from going on a 15 or 16 point or 15 to 20 point run, something ridiculous like that, where you see once or twice a season against you or for you, a team does that. They were able to at least weather the storm, get through it, and grit out a win, and then extend it in the last couple minutes after the timeout, once they figured out how to get the ball back inside and get it to their guys. I thought Mbako's play attacking there, I know we'll get to meaningful moments in a second, but the one where he broke the drought, just a great example of sometimes when your scheme's not working, sometimes when things just aren't going well, you get the ball into one of your better players' hands, your chief scorer, and he just knocks the lid off the basket, and then magically things start dropping again. And I thought, just being patient in that situation and the way he kind of handled that, I think he did it on a kind of a secondary move, getting the defender out of position off of a drive, off some penetration, and just kind of laying it up and in, was just it was just one of those things that was really a really good area. Yeah, it's a little concerning sometimes because you could tell they were kind of pressing in those last couple minutes of the drought. But your team's going to do that when they're getting frustrated. Sometimes they're going to try to throw in narrower windows or make some errors there. But it's a good sign for a program and for a team when they run into a drought like that and at least are able to kind of hold serve. Now, that happens in Big Ten competition. We may be having a different conversation. But it happened. But if it's going to happen, it's better to happen in one of these types of bye games and moving on. To play.
A win is a win, but this was not necessarily what Indiana needed coming off a road loss to Nebraska and having a week to prepare. We have to be honest with the fact that the inconsistent play, some of the shot selection, the turnovers late when you have a lead, continue to be a problem for this edition of Indiana basketball, and almost bit them today. And you can't play portions of games. You're right. The basketball is a game of runs, but what we see a lot of is some of the same things that are cropping up inside of games over and over again, and that's the frustrating part. It's got to be frustrating for everyone involved. It doesn't seem like things are getting better from game to game as far as a X's and O standpoint. I think you're spot on. Like, this is a recipe for another 18-point loss in the Big Ten, playing the way they did today, and we can go and pick some really good moments. There was a nice slip by Renew and early on, and I thought some offensive rebounding got Indiana going offensively. And if you wanted to say, I think the offense was better tonight until that drought. was probably the bright spot for the most part. But defensively, I think we continue. So where do you want to go with that? You can take it offense, defense, or just the how soon can this program get better within the season? Because I think they won a game without getting better today.
I think it's an accurate assessment of the situation. I mean, it was a game where you're going up against a team that you're 100 plus points better ranked in all the metric sites. This is a game where you're projected to win by 14. In reality, it was looks like a 2-3 possession game. Yeah, you stretch it out a little on free throws. It looks a little bit better with a 8-point versus a 4-point win. Now we're just arguing details. Again, you're always looking for what the bright spots are initially. You kind of think about, okay, what's our good, what's our bad, what's our ugly, and I think I think looking at it defensively, and there were a few going out of the second half, the intensity picked up. They got some things figured out with some of the cutting in particular, trying to get those Princeton systems, which are hard to deal with. Doing that really well, getting in the passing lanes a little better. They still gave up a bunch. I mean, some of this is actually personnel. Like if you're Omar Ballo, how do you teach that guy to defend a back cut against a more mobile player off of a switch, or even a small ball center? And you're going to see teams that are going to employ those types of Princeton sets, those types of Princeton concepts against IU. Already, we've seen all year programs have been very good about lifting their bigs to force Ballo and get him out of the lane. I was hearing, I can't remember who it was. Geez, was it who? Pregame stuff with Raphael Davis, and I can't remember which coach it was in there. And they're talking about, well, he needs more blocks. Well, it's kind of hard to get a rim protector in those positions if they're lifting him out, and then they're basically trying to take him off the bounce, take him off a cut, try to get him into that, and then you compound that problem. We saw this again throughout the game, even in situations where they recovered from it, where there's still questions on. I think I wrote down at one point, what are we? Are we switching? Are we staying? What are our protocols for when there's a screen or a handoff or something where it requires a determination? Because I think there have been some time, there were times throughout this game too where we had a guy that completely gets lost on defense. There were a couple times where we made where it looked decent, good. But there were plenty of others where guys are slipping on back cuts, or there's a switch there and got a wide open guy on the perimeter against a team that shoots the 3-ball pretty well and did so today. So there was a lot of this. It just comes back down to, I think what you're hitting the nail on the head with this too. That if you're looking at this from, if you or I or anybody was sitting in a locker room and we're saying, okay, where do you start? How do you, and now what is this, the 12th game of the season? So we're basically more than a third through the season. At this point, I'm thinking the word simplification comes into play. Like, I think that's, if you're asking the question, where does this go? It'll be interesting to see how they simplify this going into Big Ten play to try to get this where it's a lot more manageable. And maybe there are predictions, but you just use your talent through that simplification process. Because you may be talented enough through that simplification process to yield better results, especially on the defensive end.
Well, what you're talking about, and what I believe you're saying is you got to make habits, good basketball habits, and right now you can teach someone. They were going over the little handoff screen, and then the guy would rub and cut back door, and the center would turn and hit the back door. And Baco got beat quite a few times. We see Renew floating out on offense on transition and not going in and rebounding. Even Bardo, and if Bardo catches it, it's really bad. Bardo's making a comment about he's got to get engaged in the defensive rebounding, and that's where stats don't show up. Like, we can go talk about the stats and everything, but what we saw today were the habits that Indiana has defensively are not good right now. And you have to have attention to detail, and you have to have your head on a swivel, and you have to know when a guy jabs, he might be going back cut, and play with some intensity a little bit. And I heard a couple phrases last couple of weeks when I was driving around all over the place trying to cover basketball. I think I was on the way to Illinois or whatever, but Everyone plays, and I don't know who to credit this to, but I'd like to get your feelings on today's game and where Indiana basketball is in 2024. Everyone plays hard because they're sweating, they're running up and down. And maybe some teams don't play hard, but the difference is, do you compete on a possession by possession, a play by play? Does, and in the chat and everyone think, do they compete? And what that means, like every closeout, every time someone puts it on the floor, every block out, every pursuit, do you want to win that in the 19th minute of the first half? Do you want to win that in the last 2 seconds of the game? Do you collectively want to compete and play your ass off every possession? And that right there will be some improvement on the defense. I think sometimes, whether it's overthinking and not simple, like you're talking about, or it's just more offensive-oriented players, or what's going on in practice to make those habits competitive habits. And I like that term, competitive habits. I got one more phrase I want to ask you after that, and then we'll move on, because we're seeing the same things over and over again. But the difference between, in your mind, playing hard and competing possession by possession. Am I onto something, or am I crazy? I know I'm crazy, but
you're definitely onto this. So I think that you and I have both had to try to work and teach kids how to compete. The difference between, and you have a great term you use called fake hustle. And there was one play, Carlisle, he's in the passing lane. He actually is in a position where he could recover, and he did that sort of Olay towards a pass he can't get, which drives coaches absolutely bonkers, because there's no way, no how you're going to get that steal. That ball is going from basically the wing to the middle. You did your job by forcing the pass away from the play. It's more your disruption has already happened, but now you're to try to demonstrate or somehow show. And I'm not just picking on Carla, because I would say IU players blowing by closeouts. So Leal blew by a closeout that just got everybody in the scramble mode, instead of just having a habit of like, what closeouts are we using? Are we sprint stopping? Are we chop stepping? Are we going to do the blow by? And if we do that blow by, are we ready to help out? Again, that competing, it looks like you're playing hard. In some respects, you might be playing hard, but competing, I think, requires a level of discipline. Playing hard just is, maybe you're just out there flying around a little bit and you're trying to show that you're playing hard. Competing means that you're actually consciously making effort, putting effort in to positively impact the game for your team. And to make the right play, but you're going to make the right play at full effort, at full speed, and you're going to do that in a way that's designed maybe not to get you what you think or get you on the stat sheet. It's not going to maybe be a highlight play, but it's going to be a play that's going to effectively impact that possession for your team's favor. The first thing I wrote down today was, softening. Okay, we've talked about this before, and we there's a fairly lengthy record on this one. We talk about early offense, or as you're starting out of half court, the softening or false movement that you start off in. And we watched Chattanooga running their stuff that was moving the defense, their initial softening movements, their initial movements to try to get the ball into position to strike the lane, to try to strike the ball into position to score, to try to get it moving. How hard were they moving? Those first cuts weren't going to get you anything. The first cutter's not going to get it. The second cutter's the one who's probably going to get it. But that first cutter's cutting just as hard, if not harder, than the second cutter, because he knows his job is to move the defense. You look at IU are they doing the same thing? I'm thinking IU, it's basically you're looking at slow softening and even some slow striking movements. And then where you start seeing the competition is when they start going into more of their flow. Like after that's over and they make the first pass, and all of a sudden they may see the one more pass available. They may get the drive off of that. Once they've softened the defense, then all of a sudden when the ball pops, you'll see this later in a possession sometimes where it's like watching slow motion. Ball sticks to a side, ball sticks to an area. They're trying to stay in a one-dimensional type of action. And then all of a sudden the ball gets moving, they get moving, and we're getting incredible looks because we have pretty good and pretty talented players that play for this team. So it goes back to that issue that you're talking about of, are you giving something to this? Are you competing? Are you putting effort in to make the play that best impacts the possession for your team? Or are you just out there trying too hard to do something that's going to look like it's effective.
Yeah,
What's the and really what's the high percentage play? And coaches look for the high percentage play.
I think what it looks like for me defensively is guarding the first action and then relaxing, thinking you've guarded that first action, and then in a team against like Chattanooga, then they back cut, and by the time you react to it, that guy's already got that small window where they're instructed, and that center was really good at hitting that small window on those back cuts. Or you're not competing and getting yourself in a position to stop the dribble, and then you need a teammate's help, and then a good team like that kicks it out for a three. And in Game 12, this is happening in Game 12. It's happening in Game 11, happening in Game 10. Like, these guys are really struggling on the whole to play defense. And again, you can find moments. There were times when Chattanooga was forced late shot clocks and some of those things. You can find moments where Indiana is playing, decent defense, but, and the numbers will probably be all right today because they missed some shots in the second half. I don't know, points per possession type thing. So to me, that was just a really eye-opening thing that I've known for a while, but it was on one of the podcasts or something that I was listening to on the drive. And then the other one, which I think comes down to the late game situation where I think we had a really bad pass by Miles Rice that almost broke the backboard. In a game where I think you're up 4 or 5, or maybe we're 6 or something, and you want to run a little clock. You don't want to stall, but you run a little clock. You want to get the ball. You really want to score and get a possession. That was not a very good decision by that young man. And then I don't think Renew taking a pick and pop three with about a minute something to go. It worked out because Galloway, I think, got a over the back rebound and got another possession. But the phrase that I want to bring in for those kinds of things is aggressive intelligence or situational intelligence. And Miles Rice has had some really good games, and but that right there lacks some aggressive intelligence or lacks some situational intelligence of knowing time and score and who to go to. And you referenced that Mbako had a nice play to get up 6 to break the drought when he realized that he had an isolation on a smaller guy. That's understanding the situation and being able to go make a play. So that was a positive there. But Miles Rice pass was a situation where they come down and bang a three, and now you have extra game pressure. And so are these guys just trying too hard? But how do you get a team to more than not be aggressive, but be intelligent or understand the situations? Because that sure would help Indiana this year as well.
It's trust. I'll just say it's trust. It's trust in each other. It's trust in what you're doing. It's trust in everyone around you. And I'm seeing a lot of guys that they're firing up. They're always trying, and this is, again, I think at every level of the game, it's trying to put the right types of, call them constraints for lack of a better term, on a player. Like, what are you supposed to be doing, or kind of where are your limits? What are we expecting of you? Your expectations on that. And I'm not saying that it hasn't happened. I think that, at least from the coaching staff, sometimes that message gets drilled in, especially with guys who, how many alphas do we have on this team? When you really think about the number of guys who have always been, in their mind or in reality, the go-to guy in their team or their program. And in the case of 3 or 4 of them at a high level Division I college basketball program. I mean, when you bring in, it was 4 transfers, I believe, from power conference programs, that's going to be a thing that you're not necessarily going to get the guy that's, easily able to just flow into a new to a 3-and-D type role or a secondary role. They're used to being the guy that tries to make something happen. Well, if all of them are trying to make something happen, but they're not connected in their principles of play, or you're talking about habits, if there's not trust that there in what they're doing and in each other. And again, when you're this point with this much, and it's not an excuse that you're young, because a lot of teams can do this with, get that chemistry going. But not having that structure, not understanding that, I think the trust level here is a serious problem that, and we saw it a week ago at Nebraska. It reared its head again today. Yeah, they played through it. I'll grant that they'll play through that. I'll make that point that they figured that a couple things with, they did make some things happen, but Chattanooga is not Rutgers. Chattanooga is definitely not Michigan State.
Well, your talent takes over too. You can be disconnected as a team and be more talented and be able to shoot over someone or bully someone in the post or outrun someone. And right now, Indiana's talent is winning these basketball games.
Right.
Like Tucker is a really good talent. He can rise up and shoot the turnaround pull up too. Rice can blow by people and get a key bucket at the end. Mbako can understand a mismatch when he's got a 6'3" guy on him and go to the post. But in order to go far, get in a tournament, go far in a tournament, challenge for a Big Ten championship, you can't just rest on your talent. You've got to have the fundamentals. You've got to compete every possession. You've got to have a defensive identity. And at this point, I think the results – a third of the way through the season, over a third of the way through the season, the answer to that is there is no identity right now defensively. It's just I hope my talent can out-talent them on the defensive end, and then we can score a couple more buckets on the offensive end because we're just better. But you've got to get to a level where you can compete at a high level, go on the road against Nebraska and win that game, and go on the road to some of these schools you're going to have to up at Purdue and other places and win. We haven't seen it yet. It doesn't mean it won't be there. That doesn't mean that another 9 days or 8 days off of practice they can't get better. But to me, there was no real discernible change from their performance.
It's still win the matchup
at Nebraska.
It's still win the matchup,
right?
That's I think if we talk about identity, it's in every possession, everything we're seeing. It's let's go win the matchup, and there were some things they could scheme through that a little that did pretty well for him. But yeah, I would agree that's I think we need to see 40 minutes at some point. I think that we need to see 40 minutes.
I think, and consistency's been a word, Coach, that we've used on this show a lot, and today was another example of some good, but not enough, and a lot of poor play and poor decision making by the Indiana Hoosiers. Hey, remind people. That's what I'm going to do right now. But go to assemblycall.com, subscribe to our free email newsletter. Again, if you want to see the chat. You can watch us live after every game. But we're going to move on. And coming up, we continue our breakdown of Indiana's victory over Chattanooga. We'll point out some meaningful moments you might have missed and then go inside the numbers to highlight the most important stats from today's game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is AJ Moye. What's the only thing better than upsetting Duke in the Sweet 16? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach for the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers!
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm your host, Coach Brian Tonsoni, here with Coach Bob Moats, and we're breaking down Indiana's victory over Chattanooga today. It's now time for our meaningful moments you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience Indiana University athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. That's HoosierTicketProject.org. All right, Bob, I'm going to try to lighten the mood here a little bit with a couple fun, meaningful moments. Because if someone's watching us, they watched the show and they had a long night last night wherever they were at, Yogi's or wherever. I got home to my parents' house, my mom's house, and got about 5 hours of sleep. Drove home, and I had to work in the kitchen, get the Christmas going for tomorrow. So, I think the people watched and saw most of it, but I'll come to you here in a bit. But this is just advice to Mbako. Like, if you're going to turn the ball over, don't inbounce the ball to your head coach, which happened at the back end of the first half. Like, there's nothing, and I know you saw the turnover, everyone, but what you didn't see, and no one visually saw it, but as a coach, that's all happened. Like, Mbako gets driven, they give up a basket late, and he just hurries the inbounds pass and throws it behind Galloway, and it goes right to the coach. And it's happened to you, Coach. It's happened to me. And it's just not fun as a coach when you want to get mad about that lack of defense, and then the same guy throws the ball out of bounds, and you got to kind of count backwards from 10 real quick to get poised as a coach. So
the first thing you tell yourself is whatever you do, don't touch that ball with your hands.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't grab the ball. Just let it hit you. If it does hit your hands, just put it down and maybe take a little walk about 3 steps down in the box.
And do not kick the ball.
Do not kick it. Do not touch it.
Touch it. Walk away.
It's radioactive. It will explode upon contact. Do not.
Yeah. And I think Coach Woodson handled that gracefully and very respectfully handled that meaningful moment. The other fun one was seeing Ballo give Tucker some free throw advice. Tucker misses a free throw flat and hits the front rim and misses, and then they camera pans to Ballo, and he's telling them, put some air under it, put some air under it. In all seriousness, you want teammates to encourage each other and help each other out. That's a good thing. I know we're all frustrated with where we're at, but and not making fun. But Ballo has had his own struggles at the free throw line, but the young man still wanted to help out his teammates. So if you missed that, you can go back. I may have a couple others that are actual basketball things. Bob, do you have something you want to share?
Yeah, just a couple. There was a 5:35 in the first half. IU takes the lead, and it was actually interesting because Tucker kind of came in, hit a few mid-range shots, and they found a mismatch. And again, we're talking about winning the matchup. Then Chattanooga really did a good job of at that point trying to take that away. And what it did was they put they actually posted Tucker, which is some inversion that I'm not really seeing IU try. And then I can't remember who made the pass. It may have been Leo. I can't even remember. I didn't write that part down. But someone made the read and hit Carlisle on the other side, cross-courted it to Carlisle, who then was able to set up for a mid-range, hit the shot that took the lead there. And all that was set up because Tucker was winning mismatches. They bailed to try to stop the matchup, and then IU found the open guy. And they did that a few times throughout the game. I know there was another one where it was, I believe it was Mbako. Ballo gets dug into a post. There was a post dig, doubles in post, and hit perfect pass to Mackenzie Mbako for a 3-point shot that just was a great area. Was good. They were good offensive plays. Defensively, there was one segment.
Hold on. I want to come back to that real quick because I think you just took one of my moments there. Ballo had 4 assists today, and I thought he played really, really well, given all the stuff we're talking about. But he kind of had that vision, peripheral vision when that guy came. I think the play to Mbako. It was a dig on the top side, and then the guard came from the bottom, was going to trap him on the bottom if he spun bottom. And he just was kind of baiting him and waiting, and he timed it perfectly to know that the rotation was going to be off of Mbako. And then I think even Bardo said something, too, on that where it hit him right in the pocket. You could have a good read, but you don't execute the pass where a shooter has to reach for it, fumble it, and we always taught kids to bounce it if you have a bad catch. Well, by the time you bounce it in college, the shot's over, right? So it's got to be inside your shoulders and your waist, so right in that shooting pocket, and that's a long pass out of a post. I thought that was your play that you're mentioning there was a really impressive post kick out, which Indiana did get some nice threes from today.
Yeah, and great point on the quality of pass because that was critical. And that was something Ballo really didn't come. I don't think he really came to Indiana with that. He really wasn't known at Arizona for being. He's basically a dive guy. He's a seal and dive guy, and you're seeing they're at least trying to get him to expand his game a little more. That's kind of be rough to watch sometimes, but it's also something that they're making a good attempt to do. Defensively, there was one about 9 minutes to go in the second, I believe, and it was there was a confusion on I believe it was a confusion on somebody cutting through. Tucker gets out of position, and then they were able to recognize it fast enough, because they communicated the mistake. They were able to again force, basically force the ball, not force a perimeter pass. It was all year has been wide open, and got that out of there. Prevented the shot, prevented points. I believe it ended up in a shot clock violation. Or some sort of turnover where there was no points for Chattanooga. And those, I think when we talked about competing earlier, that's an example. I think these three plays are examples of what IU needs to be doing to compete. And that's examples of competition. Like we can also fill probably another 30 minutes of plays that we could break down that were examples of them not competing. But what we're talking about are plays just like that, where they're able to kind of work. They're able to make the right read in the right situation, using their talent advantages in a different way, and then also communicating as a group to be able to fix what was on the fly what was a problem. So light at the end of the tunnel, whatever you want to call it. But I thought there were some. Again, we had some good today as well. I'm trying.
That's how you fix the defense, is better communication and better awareness, and that competitive. You add those together, communication and awareness, and then you compete on those cuts, and you do it consistently. Because to be fair, there were moments where we got key plays, and that renewed dunk was from a hustle play of keeping the ball alive, and there just not enough of them against good competition. It's not habit forming yet. I was able to go down to the Indy Classic, and I sat in the media room, and the first time I've ever heard Buzz Williams. Is it Williams? Buzz Williams? Texas A&M, Texas A&M coach, right?
Yep.
And someone asked him about how they were impressed with their communication on defense. And he said, that's what our program is built on. And we practice it every day. And if you don't talk, you don't play. And so a lot of these things, too, have to be, we're not in practice, but if you want to make them better, emphasize, hold accountable. Mm-hmm. Coaches like Buzz Williams, you better talk. And at times, missed switches so far this season have been an issue, over helping. I thought there was a time, 11:46, and this will be our last moment here defensively. I don't know who it was, but the ball was driven from the right wing, and there was a shooter in the corner, but the driver was a four-man who wasn't going to get to the rim.
Right.
Like, this is what bothers me. You have to help when there is a drive that is going to be a penetrating drive or a damaging drive, then you got to sell out and help. And you can jab a little bit at these guys too, but a four-man driving a gap, which really wasn't a huge gap, it was a single gap, not a double gap. And you kind of lunge a little bit off the corner, and the ball got kicked to the corner, and we were just too late to get back. And it was enough to grab my attention because I wrote it down, over-helping on a driving four-man. That's that situational awareness that I just want these guys to find so bad, because with the talent, that situational awareness will elevate their play against any competition. But that's a situation where that guy wasn't going to get to the rim. If anything, he's going to get to the short corner, pick up the ball, and now you got him dead to rights anyway. And I don't even think he had an advantage. But it looks like we're so aggressive on all drives. It doesn't matter if it's the two quickest guys or it's the slowest guy with the ball, that we, even when we don't do the nail slot rim or whatever, we still are off balance leaning that way. That was at 11:46 of the second half, if anyone wants to go back and watch.
What if in the principles of play, that absolute protect the lane, don't allow anyone to penetrate is a principle?
It could be.
And if you take that where they're running the scheme, it points to another question.
Yeah.
And I think I had this conversation with somebody a lot smarter than me this week, and we were talking about what we used to call, we call it midway help. We call it, be on the tape, nail help when the ball's on that side, and you're not seeing the help line is moved pretty much at most to the lane line, sometimes
Right.
2 feet out of the lane
because of the athleticism.
Yeah, exactly. And because players have all learned, they're learning now, okay, the level 3 read, 3's bigger than 2. Programs are now segmenting, and we've talked about this several times also, but when you start segmenting the floor, we want to contain the ball to an area. Like no middle is designed to prevent the ball from getting to that middle part. Drop coverage is designed to segment the ball into a bubble in the slot area, which allows your guy to recover. Even some of the hedge type situations are designed to maybe go into a trap that's designed to kind of, again, force offense, negate the weak side ability for either hard cuts for dunks or 3-point shots from the wing and the slot and the baseline, from baseline to slot. What if our system is designed where we treat the paint like it's no man's land, like it's capture the flag and you're trying to prevent the guy from getting the flag? And maybe after 4 years, after we've talked about, I know you and I have talked about this defensive scheme for 3, I think evidence is pointed that that's the priority, is that we're trying to keep everybody out of the lane.
Yeah. And so, you got to evaluate it. You got to make some changes. I know I see some people in the chat talking about zone, but the same issues will crop up in zone too. You got to be aware. You've got to have your head on a swivel. You got to compete every position, and blocking out is much more difficult in a zone than it is in man. And Indiana has had a tendency this year to struggle on the glass. But hey, it's time to go inside the numbers. And this is brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. Okay, Bob, let's look at some stats today. I thought I want to focus on one of the areas that Indiana had struggled with. Only 10 turnovers for the game. Now, they had 8 in the second half, which was probably part of their lull, and I think they got an 11-point lead. And, again, the inconsistent play, they let up there a little bit, but still 10 for a game is acceptable. And your thoughts on Indiana today taking care of the basketball?
Again, I think first half they really did do a much better job of not putting in the sloppy turnovers. They were acceptable losses is where I'm kind of going with that. You're going to make a mistake here and there.
41 points in the first half offensively.
Yeah.
Offensively, that's acceptable. That was good basketball offensively.
3+ points per possession. They shot the ball reasonably well, and that was even without. I think they were like 2 of 10 from 3. It was still a decent showing, a good showing, I think, offensively. I think second half, and again, it goes back to lulls of play where you get the 8 turnovers. I think the game did get sloppier on both ends. I think it was interesting because, you could tell Chattanooga was trying different schemes defensively. At one point, they actually started running that 1-2-2 ball press with a 3-2 zone.
Yep.
And that, I think, resulted in one of the turnovers, if I recall correctly, where they were able to get into a passing lane just because it was kind of hard to scheme it. Thought IU figured out some ways of getting renewed to the middle that kind of stopped that. But there were some good little adjustments made in there. But I thought in that second half, they just defended better, and they defended extremely well. And and some of those turnovers in that 7-minute lull, that 7-minute drought, frustration turnovers. The one you mentioned going to Woodson was it's like, it's like
that actually was the third one of the first half. They had 3 in the first half, 7 as I'm checking the stats.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay.
Mbako, next time turn it over to the guy who donates money on the other side. He won't be as frustrated as you. Bob, another stat that I think is something, again, where Indiana got some good offense early and can find a way to win basketball games that they haven't done. And so maybe this is a bright spot going forward, is they outscored the opponent 15-8 on second chance points. And, offensive rebound, kick out threes, those types of things are really, really beneficial, maybe when you're struggling offensively, but beneficial at any time. And it's good to see Indiana win that. Those aren't huge numbers, but it seemed like, especially early in the second half, we were getting a lot of 50-50 balls. We were getting some rebounds and playing again. When that lead got up to 11 in the second half, you really, at that point, maybe a few little things offensively, but until that drought, I thought Indiana did some things well offensively, one of which was offensive rebound.
I'd agree. I think those are two big ones. One that I thought was interesting was for IU in particular, just, this was once again, I mean, they shot the three ball at probably at a higher level clip. And I think it's funny when you listen to guys like Bardo are sitting there and they're saying, well, we'll let IU shoot the three ball. When you have guys like Ibaka, Goody, Galloway, who shot it pretty well from time to time, Rice, Carlisle, the more they kind of get into a flow where that shot becomes more sought out, I think is one where you're going to start seeing conversion percentages go up with that a little bit. And so I thought it was, again, just a good sign that they were kind of taking a little bit what the defense was giving them. Free throw shooting was down today compared to where it's been all season. But in spite of that, again, you still had, again, even with the drought, it was 1.17 points per possession. So that's actually, okay, so you played 32 minutes of pretty good offense. We'll call it that.
Right.
32 minutes of pretty good offense. I mean, if you're looking for the pony, there he is.
All right. What else do we need to talk about? Any other stats as I'm bouncing back and forth between all my tabs
looking
here?
Foul trouble was interesting, especially, they did a pretty good job of getting them into foul trouble.
That's a size and talent thing too. That's really tough for some of these teams that come in these situations when you're, ranked further down the KenPom or the net rankings. And you can play with the bigger school for a while, but then you just run into a talent situation, foul situation.
Yeah, that's part of it. I thought Galloway picking up two early ones too. I mean, it was just interesting how, and then Renew with 4. That was those. You kind of noticed foul trouble. I don't really remember foul trouble being that big of an issue for us all throughout this season, and it seemed to kind of rear up a little bit more than it has in the past.
Yeah, Indiana for the game shoots 50%, 5 of 20 from 3, and as Bob referenced, one of the first times poor free throw shooting. It seemed everyone had a chance at missing. Galloway missed one, Leo missed one, Tucker and Baco even missed one. Renew was 0 for 3. So a little bit tough shooting there, but that's been the outlier for the year. Indiana's been able to shoot, and Balo was 5 for 5 until he missed a couple key ones late in that stretch. So, really been impressed with him shooting free throws.
One more, I think, worth mentioning. First half,
sure.
8 guys played, 8 guys scored. Nobody in double figures, still scored 41 points. Shows they were moving the ball well. Shows they were making some pretty good reads. That it'd be one thing if like Miles Rice went off for 25. That wasn't it. It was that collectively they figured out where the ball should have gone and they hit shots.
Yeah, and again, I think the thing that I'm happy with for this year, if you really want to find a bright spot, and I know where a lot of people are right now, so I understand, and I'm really with you on that. But I like the transition. Coach Woodson talked about it in his interview before. They want to get out and run on misses. They want to run out on makes. I just think that's good basketball, and I do think Indiana. There was a stat on the TV where they were 5th in the Big Ten in points, fast break points, and if they can continue to do that and add, I think. That'll help Indiana, but you gotta get stops, right? In order to get out and run on misses, you got to get some stops and you got to secure the basketball. So, all right, coming up on Assembly Call, we're going to hand out our game balls and our Hoosier Hustle Award, discuss a lingering question or two, and look ahead to Indiana's upcoming opponent. That's all next here on the Assembly Call. So stick with us.
This is Tim Priller, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call.
Good to hear from you, Tim, and hope you're listening to the Assembly Call like everyone else is. I'm Coach Brian Tonsoni here with Coach Mocs. We're breaking down Indiana's victory over Chattanooga today. It's now time for our game balls presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. They want to help you protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. Voted Best of B-Town in basement services for 4 years running, their basement waterproofing and crawl space encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention Assembly Call and get 10% off your system. Call today for a free estimate, or if you just want to hear Allie talk about Kurt Signetti, and yes, she'll still talk about Kurt Signetti even after last night for more than an hour. But learn more at bloomenviro.com. All right, Coach, this is kind of an interesting game ball situation, and I'll set it up, and then I'm going to throw it to you. Like you talked about 8 scorers in the first half, and everyone had some good moments, and yet there were every player had some situations, whether it was Galloway getting in 2 fouls early, Renew had 4 turnovers, but was the leading scorer, tied at 14. Mbako gave up some cuts, but led us in scoring at 14. So this is a tough one, I think. But who do you have?
I was hoping to grab a magic 8 ball here, because I think just shake it up. There's got to be one with a name on it. I'm just going to go with I'm going to go with Mbako because I think he impacted best both first half and second half, especially on the offensive end. I think he hit a couple big threes. Basically he's our 3-point, the guy that hit the threes in the first half were Mbako, and then I'll reference a play I referenced earlier where he kind of got the lid off the basket there in that situation. I thought overall, and again, it's kind of hard to say on a defensive effort thing where that was, but I mean, I would just say overall Mbako probably would get my game ball today.
All right, I'm going to disagree with you, which means so sorry. Cold weather from last night's getting the best of me there, Coach. Which means I'm going to be wrong. But I'm going to go with Ballo. Now, Ballo's stat line's not going to be very impressive. But in a game where you said I can't disagree with you about Mbako offensively. When he hits some threes, he's more in tune. But, boy, I just can't give a game ball to Renew or Mbako with the defensive effort that I think is I can say that they were the best offensive players. But for me, a game ball goes to someone who overall was the best. And again, 9 points. He only had 3 field goal attempts, but he at one point was 5-5 from the free throw line, had 8 rebounds and 4 assists. And one of the things I think is happening is – he's had his struggles passing the ball, and he's getting better game by game. Again, if you want to look at some bright lights for the program, I think Ballo's play is really, really good. I'd like to see him do a little more pick and roll with the dunk and the rim runner stuff, because I think he's better at that than the bully ball, crab dribble offense. I think he needs more shots. Again, our best low post scorer is Malik Renew, and you went to him late in the game. And that was a great call to get to him late in the game. But, Renew's feet are just fantastic in the post. Like I don't know how you stop him in the post unless you send 3 guys to him and get, he can go either shoulder. So, but I thought Ballo had one of his better games, and in a day where it was just everyone kind of was out there and good and bad in some ways, I thought he was probably the most consistent. So, Chad, it's up to you, or we'll throw a tie out there, producer Eddie, however that happens. So go ahead in the chat, give one of those 2. Go ahead, Bob.
Chat, Reagan in the chat, game ball goes to the fans that show up and watch. I would be willing to hang a banner for them too today. An honorable mention goes to the fan base who, after Notre Dame,
Well, now my alter ego Emily, who always sends me who I got to pick for the Hustle Award, wanted to claim the Hustle Award for herself because she was in South Bend last night and made it to Bloomington for the game. She was at both, which That's why I love Emily. She's just a true diehard fan, and I'm sure there were a lot of people who were in both places. I couldn't. I had to stop it here in Delphi. I couldn't go any further than that. So Balo or Mbako in the chat, and producer Eddie will let us know if we get a winner before we're done with the show. Back to you, Coach. Hoosier Hustle Award.
Hoosier Hustle. I'll go ahead. I'm kind of between three because I think Balo was kind of on that one for me in many respects because I thought that, again, a lot of the little things that he was doing throughout the course of the game were big. I think Luke Goody, though, gets it for me, when it gets right down to it. I mean, Leal did a lot of good things too throughout the game, but there were a couple sequences where I think Goody really sparked play. And that to me was probably that would be the one on a day where it was, again, really kind of hard to discern somebody who's jumping out and put themselves head and shoulders above the rest.
Don't disagree there, but I'm going to go with a different player. Kanan Carlisle is going to get my Hoosier Hustle Award. I thought he played very aggressive, sometimes maybe too aggressive with some of his shot selection, but I'd rather have a young man looking for a shot and believing in his shot. He looked very confident today, and you could always dial that back in my book. But he had a couple rebounds, an assist, a block, a steal in his minutes. Plus minus wasn't so good, but plus minus can be an up and down stat. But I'm with you. I think Carlisle was good. You could have given it to Bryson Tucker. I thought offensively he was really aggressive and played a good game offensively in the mismatch game when they posted him up. So I think you could go a few ways there. So again, we have another tie in there. Goody or Carlisle in the chat. So put it in the chat who you think gets the Hoosier Hustle Award, and producer Eddie will get it. Balo, a couple votes came in for Balo, so we're going to go with Balo. Plus, I'm running the show, Coach Moats. That's
totally cool.
You want to host the show, you get the winner in a tie situation.
I'm good.
So
I withdraw.
Give us a vote in there. Give us a vote. Yeah, Gavin didn't like his shot selection, but I can't disagree with you, Gavin. To be honest with you, but we search sometimes as hosts on the show, Gavin. We're looking. We're looking.
We're really looking.
And I'm on. And are you on break now, Coach? Too from school.
Now. We're really looking. I mean, we're really looking.
We're searching to have a little fun and a little enjoyment in some less than enjoyable.
World of sports.
That's right. So, Balo Game Ball is his third. We'll figure out who gets the Hoosier Hustle here award. Now it's time for the lingering questions. And Chad, if you have any questions there for us, let us know. We're going to try to get out of here in the next 5 or 10 minutes and go eat some Christmas cookies. But if you have something, let us know. Coach, do you have a lingering question other than the one word that just hangs over this program right now is consistency?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. I mean, it's just at some point, and when does the light bulb go off? When does the light bulb go off? When does this, and what's it going to look like? What's it going to look like a month from now? What's it look like 6 weeks from now? I've been trying not to future prognosticate here or most places. It's just kind of take it as it sits. But we looking at where the Big Ten is right now, looking at how we performed against top teams, that would be something. I love that one. Best catch of the day.
Game ball to Coach Woodson for the best coach of the day from Robert. We got some great people in the chat.
We really do, and thank you. I've been chuckling as I've been reading through there, and yes, So yes, I think the consistency of it, and I think also just some looking at this and taking this game by game, trying to figure out when I say a pony, there's an old story Reagan used to tell about an optimist, and an optimist was this kid is basically digging through horse crap in a barn because he just knows he's going to find the pony. He's got to find the pony. And right now there are times where, and this is true in some seasons. I just had a season like this here where you're trying to, sometimes things are not going particularly well. Where's the pony? We look for the pony because it builds you to your next game. Winthrop comes in next. You got to figure out, but the consistency question's there. And I don't know at this point, when would it be a situation where, when it would be too late? No, I don't want to look that far ahead. I think Robert just asked me that in the chat. No, I don't want to look that far ahead. But I'm kind of looking at it, but just because I don't want to do it doesn't mean I'm not going to look at it a little bit and kind of wonder, okay, if we're going to be in the same spot. And by that point, what do we call a successful season? At this point, we can start talking, I think, a third of the way in, one day game before we go into the actual true Big Ten stretch. That may be the lingering question is, okay, guys, what's a good season with a roster that was being touted, as a potential Final Four talent roster, a program that right now, when we looked at it, and my good friend and one of the smartest people and funniest people I know, Mike Weemuth, says this was pretty much hitting what we needed to hit to get to a 5 seed type of team in the portal, jumping up a couple levels in the hierarchy from being kind of level 4 out of the tournament off the bubble to working yourself into maybe even a top, basically at the top of the, that 4, 5, 6 seed area where you're breaking into maybe even that second tier of college basketball programs in the top 5%. Well, if we miss a tournament, what does that mean? And you're a far better bracketologist than I am, Coach. You're a far better bracketologist than I am.
Well, this is where I will do the shameless plug and go to Delphi Bracketology.
What a great
place. We put out our first bracket. We usually wait till right before the new year where the data, and we're 1/3 of the season through. And in all honesty, Coach, it's way too early because a lot of things can still happen, and there's a lot of quad 1 wins and so forth, and the metrics can still get a lot better and change drastically. But to be honest, Indiana wasn't even on our seed list at this moment. I think they were 10th or 11th team out for us in our first initial bracket due to the lack of quality wins, and then the metrics being they started out 40-ish in KenPom, and they're at 50 even after today. I believe, I don't know if KenPom has updated that number yet.
Seen it,
yeah. I think they were 50th going in today. And the net is sitting in the mid-60s, so there's a lot of work to be done. It's way too early to say definitively that they're in trouble or they're not in trouble because there's so many opportunities. Right. If this team plays with an identity, with a competitiveness, find some positive habits, they have enough talent to win basketball games. We saw that it was a exhibition, but you go down against the number 1 team in the country, and their only loss this year, Tennessee, is in the exhibition. And again, you're playing all kinds of people. We don't even want to get into that mess, but the talent is there if you play collectively connected, competitive basketball to get in the tournament, and then have the ability with a good seed to go on. But that's a lingering question. Is we missed the opportunity in the Bahamas. We come out of the Bahamas. We beat the probably the lowest team in the Big Ten, and then we get beat by 18. Although it was late at Nebraska, it still is a double-digit loss there. And then you come out with, after a week's worth of practice, with just kind of a regular old win that probably won't kill you in the metrics, but you missed an opportunity to win by 20, 25 against a team that, was really, really good. So I think that is a serious lingering question. But you mentioned Winthrop. Here's a little bit on Winthrop for you guys. They are currently 9-4. Best win early in the season was over Little Rock. Their losses are to Virginia Tech by 6, Georgia Southern by 2, Louisville, common opponent, by 15, and Florida State just this week by 8. They are playing at Mercer today, and then they will travel to Bloomington on the 29th.
The good news is they shoot 26.7% from three, and they're 359th in the country.
Yeah, and is that their field goal percentage? Yeah,
that's their 3-point field goal percentage,
and their 3-point rate.
Oh,
right. Distribution. Their distribution is 24.7, so they don't take a lot of threes. So now they get to go up against our strength inside. So we'll get maybe a good result.
They shoot 40% from 40% of their field goals are from three. They just shoot it so poorly.
Oh, I looked at point distribution.
Their distribution's bad because they're building a house out there. Yeah, they're building a house out there.
That's right. I now see it. The rate is at 40.3.
I'm going, okay, yeah, it's. Hey, we got.
For those of you who have never looked at KenPom, go to KenPom, go to the team pages, little blocks of information. If you're a numbers nerd and want to know more, it is a fantastic. Bart Torvik is another spot that is fantastic. If you want net information, because that is the main sorting tool, WarrenNolan.com is a great place to go. That's where we at Delphi Bracketology, we pull down all of our stuff from WarrenNolan.com. So you can get a look at this, and if you have any questions for me, you can get a hold of me or in the chat on a mob. I will be more than happy to tell you how all that stuff happens. But Winthrop is another team that Indiana should handle. They have a week to clean up some stuff and get better. So let's hope that they do. You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. Use the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. And now it's time for last call. Coach, your last thoughts on today's victory.
I think we covered it. There is one more kind of big picture thing. I think, I don't know, we haven't really talked about this yet, but I did want to make note of the passing of a true Indiana legend in Dick Van Arsdale earlier this week, who passed away in Phoenix, Arizona. After he and his twin brother Tom are two of the greatest Hoosiers, greatest Indiana high school players. I mean, the best example of identical twins playing the game of basketball and playing together the way that they did throughout their entire, through their careers. And definitely someone that over the years, those teams from the 60s sometimes don't necessarily get as much attention as the ones from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that Coach and I grew up with. But they were frequently, especially behind the scenes, big supporters of the institution and the university, of many of our programs, I might add too. They would frequently listen to us to hear what some of us had to say, which was one of the greatest honors that I've heard over the years. And I know Mike will talk a little bit more about that on our next one. But we just really wanted to commemorate the passing of truly a great player, good coach as well, coached in the NBA, and just somebody that really will be missed in our community for years to come.
And very well. I don't want to take away from that, but we also lost a Frank Kendrick from our rival, Purdue University, but it played at Tech High School, Arsenal Tech High School in Indianapolis. Well, it was an Indiana All-Star. And if you're a sports fan, you see and have heard of these players and coaches, and just all respects out to their family, and what they brought to basketball in the state of Indiana has been tremendous over the decades. And it's just sad to see some of these outstanding men as far as basketball players and other, go on. But our condolences to those two families, and we wish them nothing but the best. My final call is this. I just want to thank everyone in the Assembly Call community. Being called coach is just a absolutely incredible title. And when you retire from coaching, you wonder how that's going to play out. Well, I get this gig and everyone calls me coach here and Coach Tonsoni. And when you see me in South Bend and I get called, coach, I'm waiting in the porta pot line, and guys, hey, coach, so it passes the 30 minutes we had to wait there. It just means a lot for you guys to say hello and be here on a regular basis. We get a lot of thanks, but we really want to continue to thank you, especially these holiday season. You lift our spirits up by being here on the show, by stopping and saying hello when you do see us. So make sure you continue that. We wish nothing but the best for each and every one of you in our chat mob and listening on the podcast. Just take care of yourself. Make sure you do good things. Make sure you hug the ones you love, because it's a very important time. But that's going to do it for us here on this Saturday afternoon. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It can be found at youtube.com/assemblycall. Don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logo. Thanks to producer Eddie on the ones and the twos behind the show, making everything run smoothly. Couldn't do it without you. And thank you for listening. We'll be back again next Sunday to talk IU Hoops with you. Until then,
take it from me, Yogi Ferrell. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
here I come, Mrs. Stansoni. There is no excuse for bad defense.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry
Thanks,
Christmas.
Coach, for popping on.
My pleasure.
We didn't talk a whole lot of football, but we'll leave that to Galen. And I saw Scott up there. And
I'll just say this real quick while there's still a few people sitting here. I want to be very clear. I don't want to hear about punting. I don't want to hear about any of this. I get it. It's a judgment call late. You can't move the ball. So you still play field position 3 possessions down. We were 11-2. Our 2 losses were on the road at Ohio State and Notre Dame. I don't know. I think there would have required a Faustian bargain had I ever wanted this in my life. I feel like I will be tormented for millennia in hell because of this season, because somewhere in a fever dream, I asked for this. That's how I look at this. So, guys, let the national people blah, blah, blah about how Alabama can lose to Vanderbilt and whoever, and somehow should make the college football playoff because the world's better if Alabama's there. Okay, no. We deserve to be there. Yeah, it wasn't a great result. We know we have some things to fill up. No. Just
amen.
Appreciate we're investing in this guy for a reason. We're investing in this program for a reason. And remember, Peyton Manning got clobbered plenty of times in the cold of New England before he figured it out and won a Super Bowl. So maybe figure it out faster down in Bloomington.
And he can talk as much shit as he wants to. I approve. Right? And,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then,
let him.
And then the other thing is, I thought you and I were kind of the couple of the ugliest guys ever to be on a podcast. Well, you know what? We're good looking compared to Paul Feinbaum, who's always complaining about the SEC, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you SEC people want to go look at Paul Feinbaum, come tune into a show where you got 2 gorgeous coaches that you could look at.
You're looking at what could be home field's example of GQ models right here.
We should be hired by Connor to model.
Okay, all right. I think they've had enough show.
Okay. Producer Eddie.
I'm kidding.
Producer Eddie is calling it now.
I'm kidding. In 900
whoa, there goes the live.
End
of stream.
Yeah. 1,000
stream has now ended automatically.
It's over.
Just listening to this. Come on.
Everyone, I won't see you until after Christmas. We're having our family Christmas here at the house tomorrow, and then traveling a little bit on Christmas Eve and Christmas. Be safe on your travels. Wish you nothing but the best. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Enjoy. I'm going to go make sure Mrs. Tonsoni has some help in the kitchen, and then sit down and watch some of these great games that are being played today.
Same here. Actually, I'm going to go see Santa and a